Let me tell you something most men learn too late. You were taught that love is proven through sacrifice. That the more you give, the more you bend, the more you accommodate, the more she will value you. You were told that if you show enough emotion, enough vulnerability, enough eagerness, she will feel safe. But here is the truth that history whispers and human nature confirms. Before sentiment, there must be strength. Not loud strength, not aggression, not dominance for the sake of ego, but composure, control, emotional sovereignty. When I speak of strength, I do not speak of muscles. Kingdoms were not ruled by biceps. They were ruled by men who could master their impulses. And in matters of the heart, mastery is everything. A woman observes more than she listens. She studies your reactions, your tone when challenged, your posture when disagreed with, your silence when provoked. She does not consciously say, "Is he strong?" But her instincts ask the question relentlessly. If she withdraws for a day, do you panic? If she questions you, do you retreat? If she criticizes you, do you crumble? These moments are not accidents, they are measures. In politics, when a rival pushes against a ruler, the response determines whether the throne stands firm or cracks. In romance, it is no different. If your mood rises and falls with her approval, you hand her the scepter. If your confidence depends on her praise, you confess that you possess none of your own. And understand this clearly: attraction does not grow in dependency. It withers in it. Strength before sentiment means your emotional state is not governed by her behavior. You remain steady, calm, grounded, not cold steady. A storm may rage around a castle, but the foundation does not tremble. Many men mistake emotional expression for emotional stability. They believe that revealing every fear and doubt immediately proves depth. But depth without stability feels like chaos, and chaos does not feel safe. A woman does not want to feel responsible for regulating your emotions. The moment she senses she must reassure you constantly, calm you constantly, validate you constantly, something shifts inside her. The dynamic tilts, the polarity dissolves. You may think she desires openness above all else. She does, but only after she senses you can contain yourself. Containment is strength. If she tests you with sarcasm, and you respond with wounded pride, she sees volatility. If she delays replying, and you send 3 more messages, she sees anxiety. If she disagrees with you and you immediately surrender your position to keep peace, she sees instability. And instability cannot lead. Now listen carefully: strength is not stubbornness. It is not shouting to win arguments. It is not punishing silence or intimidation. Those are signs of insecurity disguised as control. True strength is relaxed certainty. You do not need to convince her of your value. You do not need to defend your every opinion. You do not need to react to every emotional wave. You choose your responses. That is power. When you speak, your words are measured. When you disagree, you do so without hostility. When she challenges you, you do not interpret it as an attack on your identity, because your identity does not hang by her words. Most men approach women hoping to be accepted. The strong man approaches knowing he already accepts himself. Do you see the difference? One seeks validation, the other offers presence, and presence is felt more than flattery. When a man is emotionally unshakable, a woman relaxes. She may not articulate it, but she feels it. There is space around him, air, stability. He is not trying to impress, he is simply being, and paradoxically, this lack of striving makes him magnetic. Because desperation repels, neediness suffocates, overinvestment too early signals scarcity, but strength communicates abundance. It says without words, "I enjoy you, but I do not depend on you." And that message creates desire far more than constant affirmation ever could. There is a reason rulers maintained composure in public. If they showed fear, the people panicked. If they showed doubt, rivals advanced. Emotion, unchecked, invites invasion. Your emotional discipline is your border. When you remain calm under pressure, she senses leadership. Not domination, leadership, the kind that steadies, not suppresses, and leadership begins within. If you cannot govern your impulses, you cannot guide a relationship. If you cannot endure temporary discomfort, a delayed text, a minor disagreement, a moment of distance, you will overreact. And overreaction is the confession of fragility. Strength before sentiment means you do not rush intimacy. You do not pour out devotion before it is reciprocated. You do not surrender your schedule, your ambitions, your friendships to orbit her world. Your life remains structured, purpose-driven, directed. She is invited into it, not placed above it. There is an undeniable truth about attraction. People are drawn to those who appear self-sufficient, not because they want indifference, but because self-sufficiency implies choice. If you stay, it is because you choose to, not because you have nowhere else to be, and choice creates value. When you embody strength first, sentiment becomes powerful rather than pathetic. Your affection carries weight because it is not given from emptiness. When you compliment her, it feels deliberate. When you open up, it feels meaningful. When you commit, it feels earned. But without strength, sentiment feels like pleading. So cultivate emotional control. Speak slower. React less. Observe more. Build a life that does not collapse if one person walks away. Because here is the quiet truth that governs both kingdoms and hearts. People are drawn toward those who can stand alone. And when a woman senses that you can walk away without bitterness, without drama, without self-destruction, she recognizes something rare. Not cruelty, not coldness, but stability. And stability is the foundation upon which real connection can rise. Let us continue. There is a mistake men make when they feel attraction. It is subtle, almost innocent. The moment they sense connection, they rush to reveal everything. Their past, their fears, their ambitions, their wounds, their devotion. They believe transparency will accelerate intimacy. But intimacy forced too quickly does not deepen desire. It exhausts it. Mystery is not deception. It is not manipulation. It is not playing games. It is the art of measured revelation. And measured revelation sustains intrigue. In politics, a ruler never exposes his entire strategy, not because he is dishonest, but because certainty invites complacency. Predictability invites boredom. When every move is known in advance, power dissolves. The same principle governs attraction. When you reveal your entire emotional world in the first chapters, when you make your interest unmistakably intense, when you give constant access to your thoughts and time, something shifts. The tension disappears, the curiosity fades, and without curiosity, desire weakens. A woman does not want to solve a puzzle instantly. She wants to discover it gradually. Consider this carefully. If she knows exactly how you feel at every second, if she is certain you will always be there regardless of her effort, if your availability is constant and unquestioned, then there is no risk of losing you, and what cannot be lost is rarely cherished. Uncertainty in small and healthy doses fuels attraction. When you text back immediately every time, when you rearrange your life at a moment's notice, when your schedule revolves around her convenience, you are not demonstrating affection. You are demonstrating overexposure. And overexposure breeds familiarity. Familiarity, when premature, breeds indifference. Mystery begins with restraint, not silence, not cold withdrawal. Restraint. You do not need to narrate your entire day. You do not need to share every emotional fluctuation. You do not need to respond to every message the second it arrives. Your life continues to unfold beyond her awareness, and that independence creates space. Space is not distance. It is oxygen. When there is space, she wonders. When she wonders, she invests. When she invests, attraction grows. But if you suffocate the connection with constant updates, constant availability, constant reassurance. She has nothing left to imagine, nothing left to anticipate. Anticipation is the heartbeat of desire. Understand something important. A woman enjoys feeling chosen, but she also enjoys feeling that she must continue to earn that choice, not through games, but through mutual effort. If you make it clear that she has secured your full devotion before she has invested equally, you disrupt the balance. The dynamic shifts from pursuit to possession, and possession too early weakens excitement. Mystery also exists in emotional pacing. You do not confess deep attachment in the first weeks. You do not speak of forever before foundations are built. You allow feelings to evolve naturally, slowly, with patience, because intensity without foundation feels unstable. Have you ever noticed how anticipation of an event often feels more thrilling than the event itself? It is the unknown that excites the mind. The imagination fills the gaps with possibility. When you remove all gaps, imagination dies. This does not mean you become distant or cryptic. It means you retain parts of yourself that are revealed over time. You maintain passions, friendships, routines that do not revolve entirely around her awareness. She does not need to know every thought that crosses your mind. She does not need to have access to you at every hour. Accessibility without limit diminishes perceived value. In leadership, scarcity enhances authority. A ruler constantly seeking approval loses stature. A ruler who speaks when necessary commands attention. Likewise, when you speak less but with intention, your words carry weight. When you are present but not overbearing, your presence feels deliberate. Mystery is cultivated through self-containment. You remain warm, engaged, interested, but you do not spill your entire emotional reservoir at once. You allow pauses in conversation. You allow moments where she leans forward instead of you always leaning in. You let silence exist without rushing to fill it. Silence can be powerful. Most men fear silence. They interpret it as rejection. So they overcompensate. They explain more, text more, reveal more. But confidence is comfortable in silence. When you are not scrambling to maintain attention, you communicate security, and security is attractive. Another truth, unpredictability sustains intrigue, not erratic behavior, not inconsistency, but subtle unpredictability. She does not always know exactly what you will say next. You surprise her occasionally. You introduce new experiences. You do not fall into immediate routine. Routine too early creates stagnation. Desire thrives on novelty, layered over stability. If she can forecast every action, every compliment, every reaction, your presence becomes background noise. But when there is depth yet undiscovered, she remains curious. Curiosity keeps her emotionally engaged. Overexposure often stems from fear. Fear that if you do not prove yourself constantly, she will leave. Fear that if you do not reveal everything, she will doubt your sincerity. But overproving communicates insecurity. Mystery communicates quiet confidence. It says, without words, there is more to me, and you will discover it in time. And time builds attachment stronger than intensity ever could. When a woman feels she is gradually uncovering layers, she becomes invested in the process. She feels privileged to see parts of you that are not displayed to the world. But if everything is available immediately, there is nothing exclusive. Exclusivity strengthens connection. You must understand, attraction is emotional movement. It requires ebb and flow, nearness and space, expression and restraint. When you eliminate the rhythm, the music fades. Mystery preserves rhythm. It allows moments of closeness followed by moments of independence. It prevents emotional burnout. It keeps the interaction dynamic rather than predictable. And perhaps most importantly, mystery protects your dignity. You do not beg for reassurance. You do not chase clarity at every slight shift. You observe. You respond thoughtfully. You maintain composure. Because a man who is comfortable with partial knowledge appears powerful. He does not demand constant updates on her feelings. He allows them to reveal themselves naturally. This patience alone separates strength from desperation. Mystery is not about hiding who you are. It is about revealing who you are at a pace that sustains interest. It is about understanding that depth is more captivating when discovered than when announced. It is about resisting the urge to overshare in moments of excitement. It is about letting attraction breathe. And when you master the art of measured revelation, when you resist the impulse to overexpose, when you allow her imagination to participate in the connection, you create something rare. A dynamic where she leans forward, where she wonders, where she invests, where desire is not given freely but cultivated through unfolding layers of presence and restraint. Now listen carefully, because this is where most men lose not only attraction but themselves. You have been told that love means acceptance without limits, that if you truly care, you endure everything. You forgive instantly. You tolerate moods, disrespect, inconsistency, all in the name of understanding. But here is the truth few dare to speak. Affection without boundaries invites disregard. Respect is not a gift given out of sympathy. It is a response to structure. In politics, a ruler who forgives every offense without consequence is not admired for his mercy. He is tested again and again because human nature pushes against weak borders. Romance follows the same law. If you accept behavior that diminishes you, if you laugh off subtle insults, if you tolerate cancelled plans without acknowledgement, if you allow your time to be treated as expendable, you send a message, not through words, through permission. And permission teaches people how to treat you. Many men confuse boundaries with aggression. They believe that setting standards will make them appear controlling or difficult. So they choose silence. They swallow discomfort. They pretend not to notice. But silence in the face of disrespect is not kindness. It is self-abandonment. A boundary is not a threat. It is clarity. It says, calmly and without drama, this is acceptable. That is not. When you lack boundaries, your presence loses weight. Your words lose authority. Your emotions become negotiable. And once your emotions are negotiable, your value declines. Understand this deeply. A woman does not respect a man she can easily manipulate. Not because she is malicious, but because respect is tied to strength, and strength requires limits. If she raises her voice and you immediately retreat, she learns escalation works. If she withdraws affection to gain control and you panic, she learns distance controls you. If she tests your patience and you overcompensate with gifts or apologies, she learns pressure bends you. And once bending becomes predictable, attraction erodes. Boundaries protect polarity. When you remain composed and say, I don't appreciate being spoken to that way, without anger, without pleading, without theatrics, something shifts. You are not attacking, you are defining. Definition creates structure. Structure creates security. Security fosters respect. Many men fear that if they enforce boundaries, she will leave. But consider the alternative. If you never enforce them, you slowly disappear within the relationship. Your preferences fade. Your standards dissolve. Your identity weakens. And a weakened presence cannot inspire admiration. Respect begins with self-respect. If you do not value your time, why should she? If you do not honor your commitments to yourself, why would she take your commitments seriously? If you cancel your plans repeatedly to accommodate her unpredictability, you communicate that your life revolves around her approval. A man with boundaries has priorities beyond the relationship, not as competition, as foundation. He does not abandon his work, his discipline, his friendships to accommodate every emotional wave. He integrates the relationship into his life. He does not surrender his life to it. This distinction is everything. When you drop everything at the slightest request, it may seem romantic at first, but over time, it signals imbalance. And imbalance creates instability. A woman may enjoy attention, but she respects structure. Boundaries are not about controlling her behavior. They are about controlling your response to it. You cannot dictate her tone, but you can decide whether you engage with disrespect. You cannot prevent her from testing you, but you can choose not to reward behavior that undermines you. And reward is powerful. Attention is reward. Reaction is reward. Over-explaining yourself is reward. If she behaves dismissively and you react emotionally, you reinforce the behavior. If she behaves dismissively and you calmly disengage, you create consequence. Consequence teaches more effectively than complaint. And here is the crucial detail. Boundaries must be enforced consistently. In leadership, inconsistency invites chaos. If one day you tolerate disrespect and the next day you object, your standard becomes unclear. And unclear standards are easy to ignore. But when your behavior aligns with your values every time, you become predictable in the right way. Not boring, stable. Stability is deeply attractive. It means she knows where you stand. She knows what you accept. She knows that crossing certain lines has cost, not punishment, cost, and cost elevates value. If access to you requires respect, she values access more. If your time is limited and structured, she appreciates it more. If your approval is not automatic, it becomes meaningful. Many men attempt to secure love by removing all barriers. They believe unrestricted access proves devotion. But unrestricted access without earned trust reduces perceived worth. Even kingdoms have gates, not to isolate, to protect. When you protect your emotional well-being, your time, your standards, you demonstrate maturity. Maturity commands admiration. There is another dimension to boundaries: emotional responsibility. You are not responsible for managing her every mood. You are not obligated to solve every internal conflict she experiences. You can support, you can listen, but you do not absorb her emotional storms as your personal burden. If you become the constant stabilizer without maintaining your own stability, resentment grows. And resentment poisons connection. A man with boundaries knows when to step back, when to say, "I care about you, but this dynamic isn't healthy." When to withdraw from arguments that degrade rather than resolve. He does not escalate. He does not beg. He does not chase reconciliation at the cost of dignity, because dignity is non-negotiable. When a woman senses that your self-worth does not fluctuate based on her approval, she begins to treat you accordingly, not because she is forced, because human beings instinctively align their behavior with perceived value. If you appear scarce and self-respecting, she invests carefully. If you appear abundant and self-abandoning, she invests casually. Boundaries also protect attraction from overfamiliarity. When you maintain your routines, your ambitions, your standards, she sees that you are a man in motion. Not stationary, not orbiting her emotional state. Motion creates momentum. Momentum sustains attraction. Without boundaries, relationships drift into imbalance. One gives excessively, the other receives passively. Resentment grows quietly, respect fades gradually, but with boundaries there is balance, there is clarity, there is tension, the healthy kind. You remain kind but not compliant, open but not exposed, loving but not self-sacrificing, because love that costs your identity is not love, it is surrender, and surrender without respect breeds quiet contempt. So understand this principle deeply. If you desire to be valued, you must first value yourself. If you desire to be respected, you must enforce standards calmly and consistently. If you desire lasting attraction, you must protect your dignity more fiercely than your fear of losing her. Because the man who cannot walk away from disrespect teaches others that he will endure it. And the man who endures it repeatedly slowly erases himself from the dynamic until what remains is not partnership, but imbalance sustained by tolerance and unspoken frustration.